Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in with I Mentor Cloud, another speaker, another topic. So if you are someone who wants to build your career as a security architect, engineer, or if you're a company who is already in Microsoft, Azure, and 365 and want to use all the capabilities, how would you modernize and leverage those existing capabilities when it comes to security? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's the topic. It's just, I think every business needs to consider if they have Microsoft Azure. And that being said, I have a very good expert who can get to very technical if you need to be. So that's being said, I have Morten Waldstrop from Denmark, and we were talking about some of his travel things, and he's been to US more than the places I believe I have seen in the US. So this is good to know. So, and he's also the Microsoft Azure Security MVP. He's very active in user group and activity. So that's being said, I will have Morten please introduce yourself and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here. And thank you for the great introduction there. And yeah, my name is Morten, and I'm, as you said, a Microsoft MVP, also a Azure Hybrid MVP. And I work as a cloud enterprise security um, architect, helping medium-sized and enterprise customers today on dealing with both, cloud adoption, doing a lot of Azure cloud infrastructure, and also helping with enabling the security platform that you just introduced. So I work very much on especially the deployment and the enabling of it, and also setting up the needed processes and helping to set up the organization to support it. So that's what I do normally every day.
Yes. So how did you get into that, right? And
Yeah.
specifically, how did you get into specific Microsoft stuff?
I started in IT in 1991. So that's quite some time ago. And I worked with Microsoft products since 94. During, the last 30 years or so, I have worked primarily as a consultant, but I have also had my own company that grew pretty a bit and actually managed to sell it. So I sold it, 5, 6 years ago. And and I learned a lot about, processes and people, besides also getting the technologies up and running. So that's my background. I'm a little special in that sense because I know my way around on the technical stuff, but I also know a lot about how to set up processes, make them run, with the same level of quality every, day or every week, every month. And also to motivate people and help the management to set up the organization to work with cloud services, because it will challenge the organization and the maturity because of the speed. So I worked very much with that, especially over the last 6 years. I have worked with the client, the cloud private preview programs, testing a lot of the technologies, trying it out, getting feedback back to the product team. So that's one of the things that I've been doing a lot is, learning the Microsoft organization and knowing the PMs. I've also visited, both in Israel, where a lot of the security guys are located also in Redmond. I was in India a couple of weeks ago and 2 sites there, meeting PMs from various teams. So that's just a quick intro how I worked with it.
No, I appreciate that. Appreciate that's a long journey. And again, like based on your work, it's a lot of depth, definitely. So Azure security specifically, you have been putting a lot of time in logging, and I know
Mm.
how can it be a pain, but at the same time, leveraging Microsoft Azure, right? So let's give us the high level, and then
Yeah,
we will cover some of the topics
yeah,
where the people are tuned in. We're going to talk about some of the Defender. We talk about
yeah.
different logging capabilities. So let's get start from there.
And I'm passionate in a way that how you can bring back data from varying sources and put it into the cloud and use cloud as a kind of a cheap storage, and then build, dashboards on top of it. You can do some alerting on top of it. And so I really like what you can do when you can bring in all these data. So, and there are so many opportunities today where you can bring in, from standard connectors inside, for example, Sentinel, and you can, hundreds of connectors where you can bring back data. And then you can set up, alert rules. So you can find any things going on security wise in your infrastructure using these platforms. So, but besides that, it could also be operation wise. For example, show me all machines that has not been restarted for more than 50 days, or show me what members are in the local admin groups on all my Windows servers and stuff like that. And then I can use this data to detect any deviations from my desired state or desired configuration. And that allows me to, make dashboards, make, alertings if something deviates from my desired state. So that is one of the things that I have built. I've also published some of it out to the public so that people can download, for example, the tool that I create called Client Inspector, where you can use it on your client infrastructure. And I have a similar one for all servers. And all my customers are running this, are really happy about it. And then you get so great data out of it. And the cost for it is pretty low, but the value of it is, really great. And that's just, part of this whole security stack where you are getting all with the Azure security systems up and running, like Defender for Cloud is an example. And you get Azure Monitor Agent, and you get all these different technologies up and running, and you bring them all into the Sentinel platform. Besides that, you also have the whole Defender stack where you can, enable those technologies like Defender for Identity, Defender for Office 365, Defender for Endpoint, and Defender for Cloud Apps, and all these different great products. So the overall security stack from Microsoft, I'm really a fan of it, and I love what you can do, and I love what you can detect, and also love to work with Microsoft on these products and how Microsoft are listening very much to the feedback that we are giving them. And it is really great to see your feedback being implemented in the product. And I must say, I'm really think of Microsoft as a huge organization, but how you can influence these products to make them a little bit better every single day.
No, this is very important and exciting because, yeah, I know Microsoft is listening, and I can see the improvements. Basically, when I did my first projects for 365 back in 2011, early adopter of Microsoft 365 more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And back in 2016, 17, I was a lead architect for migrating to the cloud. So I know there were even Sentinel and all these things did not even exist, right? And now, last couple of years, that Microsoft heavily invested uh, in security overall. We know that,
Yeah.
and they're like legitimate cases because logging and 2 business cases you mentioned about admin level permissions and all that. Those are the things where we want to have the automation.
Yeah.
There's no way you can just go man and look at. So again, a tool like
Yeah.
yours you built up. So tell us something, why something is better with 365 Defender without 365 Defender, because in Sentinel, you can collect the data from data connectors. So where does it fit into that?
Yeah.
If you can kind of help understand.
Yeah. I think it's a very good question. And the way that I tell about this, basically you have some pillars inside the Microsoft organization where you have the whole M365 organization or teams. You can think of it. You have the Azure teams, and you have various teams inside the whole organization. And all of them, when it comes to security, are working on, building better, products within the whole security stack. And I see that you have a huge Defender stack and you have a huge Azure stack. And you can bring these data into the Sentinel platform, or you can use some of it, as a product. For example, if you want to do endpoint protection, you don't necessarily need to have the Sentinel platform up and running. If you are not having a huge cloud footprint, you can come very far with the security portal, with the whole Defender stack. But you can also bring these data into this Sentinel platform as the connector, where all of the alerts, all of the loggings are streamed into the Sentinel platform, which means that when all these alert rules are looking for threats in your data, it can detect this data from these various sources. And when you have more and more sources, your detection becomes even better. So you can bring it all together into this SIM tool called Sentinel, and that is where it becomes a real enterprise setup. Or you can use it isolated, for example, just for endpoint protection, for identity protection, for Office 365 protection, and with the cloud stack, if you are using just the security portal and the Defender stack.
Yeah. So what you're saying basically, so basically Sentinel will help once it has all the logs, correlation, build the correlation. This is where the AI and ML magic works.
Yeah.
It can
And you can,
find
and it will also help you, for example, if you want to protect and scan, for example, for all your PaaS infrastructure, you will enable Defender for Cloud, and Defender for Cloud will, report into the Sentinel, and you can, detect things. It will create incidents, and you can manage these incidents from within the Sentinel product. And it will have two ways synchronization of this data. So if you close it inside Sentinel, it will automatically close the incident or out in the different products. So think of Sentinel as the overall SIM tool, the platform, and it will do two-way synchronization and management of these different systems. But and you can also bring in data from other sources like your network infrastructure, your SAP infrastructure,
right.
and a lot of different third-party, systems supports by connector, getting the data into this platform here.
Yeah. So you mentioned a very good point, SOAR, which is security orchestration, automation, and remediation. This is a big piece because this is how you want to automate your SOC or security operation, basically. So what you're saying, Sentinel has the capability, which is good at that, and it works two ways to take action on those known cases, basically.
Exactly. So, for example, let's say that you get some kind of brute force attack against your environment. You can make an automation that will contact your Palo Alto firewall and make a rule that will block this IP address, for example. So you can build tons of automation around this as part of your use cases when you set it up. So, but what you get out of the box with the Sentinel is that it's a fast way to get up and running because you get a lot of things out of the box. Of course, you need to implement it in your organization and get the handover and the adoption of these different things that you can do with the product. But it works very fast, and a lot of my customers are up and running within a couple of days. They have the whole thing up and running, and we actually have things working, and it's really a great way to work with that.
Yeah, you're on top of that. So it's highly available, it's
Yeah,
scalable, agile. So you don't
yeah,
have to worry about running out of space on the logs, right? You don't have to plan. You just run as platform as a service,
yeah,
set it up
yeah,
on the application layer, ingest the log, and just get it going. And
yeah,
I mean, so many large enterprises, they have their compliance policies. We have to return the logs. We have concept of hard storage. You have concept of cold
mm,
storage. So again, designing is very important. What I'm hearing
it
out loud
is.
from you, you need to know the stuff. You need to scope it down properly. Hey, do I need
Yeah,
to ingest the logs from Microsoft 365 or not? Do I need
yeah,
to ingest the log from my Linux machine or not, or Windows machine or not? Do I need to ingest the log from Palo Alto, as you just mentioned?
yeah,
The scoping is very important, then the
yeah,
engineering behind that, and then you go from there.
yeah. I think the design is very important, and there are lots of ways that you can design it, and there are a lot of factors that will influence the design. Compliance is one thing, latency, where are your IT people located? Do you have a centralized, decentralized, and so on? And so it depends on how you want to do it. Sometimes you also have external people that help as a SOC, and that will also maybe influence the design. One of the things that is very important is also the cost around this, because when you work with logs, it's often, it raises a discussion where three parties kind of uh, is, have to make some trade-offs with the logs. So the security guy, he will say to you, just enable everything. I want everything in my logs. The guy with paying for it, he says, is it really necessary? And the operation guy, he will also have some, opinion around this. So he will say, how does this impact my performance? And will my server go down or whatever? So it's always, making some kind of trade-offs. But that's one of the cool things that I like about the new things that Microsoft have done, where you can actually do what is called a transformation. So instead of, sending in data, you can now, you can still sending in data, and then you can set up transformations where you will exclude data that is maybe not relevant, and and then it will exclude that from being ingested into the log analytics workspace. So that will really help you cost optimize things. I had an incident the other day where we enable logging from, I think, 300 servers. And we detected that on four of these servers, which was their backup servers, they had some kind of incident or some kind of event happening inside the security logs that happened, millions of times every day, and they did not know about it. And we detected that once we saw the data coming into the central log repository. And instead of having to, fill up the log database with just this event, which was not useful, we made it a transformation. So we excluded that from being ingested into the central repository. And then we asked the guys to fix the problem so that they could actually, fix it. So that is one of the capabilities that I really like with Log Analytics version 2 compared to the old method where we had the, the where we were using like solutions, and it was very hard and basically impossible to do targeting. And so in, using data collection rules, DCR and data collection endpoint, that allows us to do better targeting where we can target so that we only collect what we need from the servers where we want to collect it from. And we can do lots of transformations on the backend side before data are being ingested into the log analytics. And that is something that really, really helps, cost optimize things. I have another example. So for example, I have a customer with 20 firewalls that are on the internet from each of these branch offices, and they have some public IP addresses, from these. And what we saw from inside the log analytics workspace was that about 43% of all the logs coming in from the firewall, from the syslog firewall, was port scanners that are located on the internet that are just, searching these public IP addresses for any ports that will be open. And instead of, having to pay for this, we decided to I made a script that will do a lookup inside a third party system called Abuse IP DB, where these IP addresses from these port scanners were mentioned as, having a bad reputation. So we excluded those from the logs. So that's an example where we actually cut the cost almost in half by excluding this traffic from our syslogs. And again, this is a trade-off because the security guy might say, I want to see that inside my logs because it could be, a hacking attempt, but it is always a discussion. And in this case, we decided to, of course, drop the traffic, but also drop the logging.
Very, very, very good two business cases. So let's go back to the previous one you were mentioned about targeted log ingestion, which is what you call DR
DCR.
and DCR. And
Yeah.
so rule based and saying today give you the capability that you can only ingest security event ID. And before that, it will just ingest everything. Am I correct?
Well, not today. In the old days, you would enable collection of, for example, event logs, and it would be, added to the workspace. So all computers that was attached to this workspace, you get collected everything. But today we can go in and create, let's say, 3 data collection rules where we define in one rule, we want to collect everything. Then in rule number 2, we might just want to collect common events. And then on the third one, might want to collect a much less one. And then we go in and take this data collection rule and associate them with the servers where we want to collect it from. So we can target it and say, on these servers, we want to collect everything. On these servers, we want to collect just common events and so on. And again, we can even do a transformation of this where we can say, if this event ID happens, we want to strip it out of this. So targeting is by design is something that is possible. And that is also why we need to have an Azure object. So let's say that you have an on-prem server that are in your AD. In order for us to use these new things, we need to have an Azure object. So this on-prem server needs to be having an object inside Azure. And that is why we are enabling this server using Azure Arc, which is a free service, which will allow us to get an object inside Azure. And now we can associate this object with 1 or 2 DCR rules.
Interesting. You mentioned Azure Arc. Literally, I had another speaker who covered this Azure Arc. Maybe if we can future plan something with you on specific, how does Azure Arc help in this scenario? So
Yeah.
I mean, this rule-based targeting is pretty exciting. I mean, you can literally
Yeah.
save a ton of traffic, ton of unknown. And as you mentioned, you can specifically look it up, what exactly events you're looking for, because security in logging and monitoring basically is, as to your point, you just don't want to dump everything. And
Mm.
there are some educated trade-offs. There's a lot of
Yeah.
engineering behind the scene.
But again, you need to, one thing is enabling it. One of the other thing that is important is to monitor it. You know, for example, let's say that you deploy the extension or the agent, think of it as an agent, out to 300 servers. But let's say that some of these servers, the extension breaks, or it will fail, or it will be blocked by, not being able to send the data up to the cloud. You also want to monitor, find all servers with an extension installed, but show me where I'm not receiving any data into your logging infrastructure. So you want to detect if there are any deltas where, for example, 5 servers are not sending in the data, and then you can create an incident and start your investigation to detect why I'm not seeing any logs. Does it not have any DCR associated? Is the agent blocked? Is it failed? What's going on? So that's from an operational side of it, where you want to detect any things that deviates from your desired configuration. Another thing is around the cost, where you want to have some investigation going on to understand, is there anything that suddenly changes from its behavior, where suddenly you see an increase in your cost with 20% overnight? What happened in there? So, of course, you also have a third track, which is the most important one, which is the security track, where you can constantly monitor it, and you also, update your alert rules constantly. For example, I have a script that will go out and check for any alert rules that has been published inside these templates from Microsoft and any vendors there. And in case any of these alert rules are being updated, or a new one comes out, this script will automatically go in and either create, if it's a new, or update this alert rule to the latest version, so that your detection always is updated in case of any threats, coming out. Uh, and we have seen this being very useful in a couple of times where, for example, Log4j, when it came out, and then suddenly within, hours, Microsoft released a way, actually from the community, they released a way to detect this. And then all my customers were updated, and they started to get these data and incidents into the portal. So it's very important to automate these processes, both the operational processes, the cost processes, and of course the security processes, because of the speed and the it is so big in a sense.
No, you meant, well, yeah, I mean, exactly. So what you're saying is basically, eh, be vigilant for anything which is out of ordinary.
Yeah,
If you see a lot of traffic, yeah, you got
yeah,
to make sure. So monitoring basically
yeah,
is as important as logging in, because
yeah, yeah,
if your logs are not being sent,
yeah,
you got to monitor that. Okay, what my
yeah,
server started failing. So those
exactly.
are some indicators. Basically, you have to have that.
Yes,
What are the indicators? There needs to be going there.
yeah,
And that's why, you can have better visibility of the environment.
yeah, exactly.
So, then, So is there, you mentioned third party, Palo Altos and all that, right? So I
Yeah.
know, help me understand, because Sentinel do have data connectors for third party.
Yeah.
So how does it, it's different here?
Well, how you can use it, of course, you can, a customer can have, for example, a Cisco strategy as an example, where they are
Okay.
using different Cisco products as an example. And what you can do is that you can integrate these products inside the Sentinel so that in case that, for example, any of these products will have some kind of threat detection, you can leverage this data into your Sentinel platform uh, as as a core feature. Uh, but you have to bring in the data, so it will not allow you to do a log off, a lookup in these data. You have to bring the data into the platform so that it is searchable into the log analytics platform. But I'm sure that this will maybe change in the future, and so that we can do things differently. But as of now, we want to bring these data into the log analytics, and of course you can also bring into other uh, systems like in Azure Data Explorer cluster as an example, and then to do the lookups in there. But we want to bring the data in, and then we can do some queries on top of this. So alert rules is basically just a query, and with really advanced queries doing all these detections, and in case something is detected, it will as bring up an event, and we have an incident.
Because as you just said, it's one on machine. You have to bring the data, you have to onboard it. It should be readable format, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah,
But today your data can be published in different ways. So you can either do a push or a pull. So, and I've actually built a solution that will help, customers and the community to work with the new logging capabilities, like log ingestion API, yeah, using the new ways of working with the API capabilities. I built a PowerShell module that you can download on a PowerShell gallery, and it has been downloaded 25,000 times already. And it helps to deal with all the steps in doing data manipulation, creating the log analytics table, creating the data collection rules, getting the whole schema up and running, and and also updating the schema in case of any changes, and of course, publishing the data or posting the data into the platform. So, as I said, you can do kind of an inventory based method where you are collecting data from that and from a script, and then it will push the data into the login platform, or you can have some kind of automation that will pull the data from these different sources and push it up into the log analytics workspace. And the same goes with these, for example, the Cisco logs and the Palo Alto logs. You can get the Ceph logs, the syslog logs, and send it into the workspace from using your Linux forwarder. And we are in a transition right now because on August 24, Microsoft will decommission the old platform using Microsoft Monitoring Agent. And right now, we are in a transition where we want everyone to move to the Azure Monitor Agent, or AMA in daily terms. So I really encourage people to move to AMA and using data collection rules and DCE, because you have so many capabilities in these new, methods. And Microsoft are almost there where I can say that we are, on pair with the capabilities that we have in the old MMA world. Right now, it is just change tracking where we are lacking some features, which will come hopefully around summertime, maybe a little after summertime, and then we should be good to go. But all my customers are using it today and it works perfectly. And the performance is better, security is better, the targeting is better. So, and it can help you drive the cost down and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a very good piece of advice for the businesses. And yeah, they have to be watchful in August and
Yeah.
always upgrade in
Yeah.
security to the latest and
Yeah.
greatest.
Yeah.
So takeaway for the businesses. Okay, if you are a Microsoft shop, it's a no-brainer. You
Yeah.
just want to have for security, for the
Yeah.
visibility, tool is right there, go configure it. And even if you have it, if you plan on designing something for SIEM and SOAR, solution is there because it's already support, as you mentioned, Palo Alto and so many third party there. So it's not only specific to Microsoft, you can support different endpoints and different devices on your whole enterprise.
Yeah.
What is your suggestion or advice for someone who wants to transition in the area of security engineering? Do you want to give advice to someone who wants to become a security engineer, who is already a
All right.
system
Good. I got
administrator
you.
for the 5 years?
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I would say that working with security inside Microsoft is huge, and we need to acknowledge that. And so typically you will start in some of the in one of the area where, for example, you want to do endpoints and you want to do endpoint protection, and you start by learning the capabilities there, and so you you don't in the beginning you don't want to go uh, very deep, uh, but you want to also touch on the different capabilities so that you understand overall the full stack that Microsoft provides. But I think over time, I see that people tend to specialize where they have their passion. For example, are you coming from an endpoint device where you are used to maybe manage devices? Then you will probably move on and continue with endpoint protection, and then work in a large company and be the specialist on this. But you can also come from this, the cloud world where maybe your way around in protecting, for example, web services, databases, and stuff like that. And then you typically come from the Azure. You want to focus on the Azure services, and then you start learning your Defender for Cloud, uh, and the capabilities in there. And so it all depends. You can also come, for example, from the identity world where you have some knowledge around AD management, Azure AD, and you want to do identity protection, and then you start typically there. But over time, you will probably learn the whole stack, but so that you know the capabilities there. But I think specialization will be key here because it goes very, very fast. Uh, and it's hard to keep up. I also encourage you guys to sign up for free into the private preview programs. And Microsoft has various private preview programs. It's called CCP, Cloud Connection Programs. For example, you have the Defender Cloud Connection Programs, which covers the whole Defender stack. So it will give you some great insight to this under NDA. You get to know the PMs that are, designing these, and you can influence the features. You can test it, and I encourage you to give some feedback. And there's another one which is called Cloud Security, Cloud Connection Program, which covers the whole Azure side of the security, like Defender for Cloud and Sentinel and stuff like that.
No, those are valuable share, and definitely I'll put those link in my
Yeah,
description of this video.
yeah, that'd
And
be good.
also, do you publish your blogs or something? You want to share your blogs so people
Yeah,
can
yeah,
go read about it?
yeah. I published a lot of, try to keep up and publish whatever I have time for it. But for example, in April, I published 19 blogs around logging.
Wow.
So in case you want to get a great insight about this, I encourage you to go to my, blog, and also on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with people. If you want to connect, then just connect with me on LinkedIn and I'll accept it. And I'm using that platform primarily, to get, the message out in case there anything that could be of value to the community.
No, you got that. So I'll definitely share your blog link and also your LinkedIn profile link
Yeah.
in the description of this video below, so people can reach out to you. And
Yeah.
again, for those, before we wrap up, I just want to add, there are so many conferences happening around the world. So
Yeah.
look up for his name or in your expertise, you'll find
Yeah.
it. Not in,
Yeah.
in Europe, in India, he's traveling all over the world. So,
Yeah. Great.
so I thank you again, Morten, for your time and valuable insights. And hopefully I will get you sometime again in the near future.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope to meet you soon. So thank you very much. I hope, and have a great one for everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.